Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 1969 giallo film, The Doll of Satan. This is my first time watching a film by Ferruccio Casapinta, which it's his only film. And when I started doing research on this, I was like, uh-oh, I have a bad feeling about this film because this guy has not done anything other than that. Because normally when you're looking up what directors from giallo films have done, they usually had a pretty long career, and a lot of it ended up spanning a lot of different genres, a lot of war movies, a lot of westerns, sometimes like sex comedies, stuff like that, but nothing for Casapinta. So I was like, I think I'm in for something terrible, and I was totally correct. In fact, apparently there was someone who had publicly said, who was aware of Casapinta and his work on the film, and they had publicly made a comment calling him an idiot and saying that basically the assistant director did the majority of the work, and he was kind of pointless on the set. So yeah, very interesting. The script for this was also written by Casapinta, also involving Giorgio Cristallini, who had written some scripts for films such as The Legions of Cleopatra, Four Gunmen of the Holy Trinity, My Mother's Friend, and Seagulls Fly Low, just to give you a smattering of genres there. And then also Carlo M was also involved in this one. No other writing credits for that individual. I do like the beginning of this with the dead body being dragged. Excuse me. Just so you know, that might happen from time to time. It is heavy on my allergies right now. But anyway, getting back to the film, so the body being dragged. I like those types of starts because it's like, dead body, how did we get here? We're about to find out. It piques your interest early, but with this film, it gets bad after that, honestly, because it's very meandering. The script is awful. The directing's actually not terrible. I mean, it's not like particularly good, but it's serviceable, I'd say. Like, if the script was actually good, I would be okay with the directing, but it's just kind of, the directing's not that great, in addition to the fact that the script is just so meandering, and all the scenes just kind of feel like they're just like random scenes kind of just like slapped together, in essence. If you've seen it, let me know in the comments. Do you agree with me on this one? Oof. I actually did put it at the bottom of my ranked giallo list, because I keep an entire list on my phone of every single giallo film I've seen, and at this point it's well over 50. And this is at the bottom, even below Slaughter Hotel, which is awful. All right, so 5 minutes late, and these people are acting like they're complete jerks because of that delivery boy. Yeah, I like how they go from the dead body to this delivery boy bringing, like, baked goods, and then the people at the castle or the estate are basically like, you're 5 minutes late, and you'll have no business if you do this again. It's just like, look, A, it's 5 minutes. B, it's a kid. Like, calm down. It does give you an idea of how these people are, though. Was that all that intentional? Probably not. Because a lot of the dialogue and a lot of things that happen in the film seem like they were just thrown in because when they were writing, they're just like, this is a thing that might happen, and this is a thing that people might say, so let's just throw it in there. Does it have to do with the story? Not really. Don't care. The other thing is they would nail certain things an incessant amount, and I'll talk about that when I get to it in my notes. Just horrible. Even though the characters are smiling, the way the jukebox dance party is shot makes it look unbelievably boring. The guy in the kind of like light bluish sweater in particular, love his dance moves. That's basically how I dance. So go back and watch that. Like, no rhythm at all. But, like, it was just, like, this small grouping of people, like, having a dance party at, I guess, like, this bar is what it seemed like. Because that's where that dude Cordova creepily was hanging out and talking to Claudine, I believe is who it was. Who we find out at the end, Claudine, oh my gosh, she's actually, like, an agent, like a federal agent or something. She was on the case all the time. That's happened before. I think that was in, what was that? The Killer is One of 13... Was it that one? Or it was either that one or The Police Are Blundering in the Dark. It was one of those two movies from like the Forgotten Gialli collections. I like how at the dinner table, almost all of the characters look right at the camera. That is a big no-no when it comes to filmmaking. When you're trying to create a story, create a whole like environment, a whole world to immerse people in. Don't have your actors look at the camera. You know, things like this, it's actually good to look at the camera because it's like a conversational thing. You want to feel like I'm talking to you, because I mean I am, but I'm talking to a lot of people at the same time. So, but in film, do not look at the camera, and that sort of stuff should be acknowledged. Do another take, or you edit it out if you didn't get the take at the time. But just notice, like when they're having that dinner scene, or lunch or dinner, I don't know, which is entirely too long anyway, and the conversation is just unbelievably boring and terrible, and it moves nothing forward for the most part. I mean, you get a few basics that you do need about, you know, the wishes or the non-wishes of the guy who passed away, Balajan, I think is how his name's said. Balajan? I don't know. But, yeah. But just notice, everyone's looking at the camera. Not everyone, but almost everyone. They look directly at it. These people talk way too much. The dialogue really needed to be simplified. Yeah, that was one of the other things. Like, the script writing, everyone is so unbelievably verbose. It definitely feels like they were just trying to pad the script, pad the runtime of the film, because they just had, like, a vague idea of what they wanted the story to be, which it could have been okay. It's just they executed it horribly, and the script is just a friggin' mess. Like, the twist ending was okay-ish, and they could have used that and been good if they would have kind of built more interesting characters, more flow to the actual film, not just like filling scenes with drivel as far as dialogue goes. It was unbelievable. This film actually did so poorly, by the way, in Italy that they had actually gotten a like English dubbed version ready, but it was actually never released. So what you can find right now is just the subtitled stuff, which I honestly think that some of the subtitles weren't even done all that well either. Just saying. As soon as Jeanette is revealed, you get the idea that she'll end up being some sort of key to solving this whole crime. Obviously, she knew things. She wanted to tell things to Elizabeth. But Elizabeth, stupidly at one point, says, "Why don't you write it all down? We'll take care of this tomorrow." Because as we all know, in giallo films, that never goes well. Because if somebody doesn't tell a person at that exact moment, they will die. This is one of these like unwritten giallo rules. It always happens. If someone's like, "Hey, I got something to tell you about this. It's really important." "Okay, I'll tell you later." Dead. In this case, Elizabeth did it to herself. Yeah. I like how Elizabeth invites some random person to the castle. It seems that she is very desperate for friends. That ends up being Claudine, which they could have come up with a much better way of inserting Claudine into the story instead of just having her someone who's just randomly hanging out, comes across Elizabeth, and then Elizabeth is just so insanely desperate for friends as she's moving to this estate of her uncle that she's just like, "Hey, you person, you don't look like you're a terrible human being. Why don't you join me at the castle because I want to talk to people and I don't have any friends." It's crazy. They sure spent a lot of time talking about the uncle's will, his estate overall, and the potential of it being sold. Unbelievably boring. That's what I was talking about. They just keep hammering the same thing. And every time they're hammering it, they're not adding anything to it. Like, there's nothing being furthered with the actual story. They're just like, "Hey, let's rehash this conversation that's already happened like 5 times at this point." And it just keeps coming up. The same stuff throughout the film. It just feels like it's treading water the whole time. Until the very end, and they're just like, "Oh, this is what we were wasting time for. Let's give you an ending real quick." Jack's explanation about excuse me. Jack's explanation about revising articles is made suspicious because he acts nervous about it. Now, obviously, this was probably intentional. I'm not trying to give too much credit to the filmmakers here, but probably it was intentional because I think we're supposed to be a little suspicious of Jack. The way he responds to things that people say, like he's got this kind of suspicious look. They do have some times where they kind of oddly like zoom in on his face, like, "Isn't this guy suspicious?" So that's one of those misdirect things. They do that a lot in giallo films. They try and, attention over here. This person looks suspicious. Whereas over here, it's like, here's a random person we just showed real quickly. They'll come in later and be very important when it comes to this whole thing. But yeah. The introductions of the torture chamber and the ghost story that comes up had me feeling a little bit hopeful for something interesting being injected into the story. They try to inject into it the ghost story aspect with, I forget what his name is, Edouard, who wasn't actually Edouard. Oh, it was Paul in the end. I forget his last name. Renaud. Yeah, so they try to inject the ghost aspect of it with him kind of like having something recorded saying Elizabeth's name and like playing that and dressing up like some kind of super weird looking Phantom of the Opera kind of, because he even had like a cape and like a mask and everything. But did not done well, obviously. So I was hoping for something kind of cool related to the ghost story. I was really hoping for something related to the torture chamber. I mean, we get that in the form of a nightmare that Elizabeth has, but it's not satisfactory. And the amount of like dreams/nightmares that Elizabeth has, very annoying, very annoying. If you're going to do the torture chamber thing, have it be in real life within the context of the film. Like, that's what we're looking for, people. And have some good gore, because there isn't any of that. With Stefan whispering and you not seeing his face, it makes you think he goes by another name and you've already seen him. Obviously, he goes by 3 names, because it's Stefan when Carol is talking about it. It's Edouard when we've actually seen him as, like, the butler guy. And then it's actually, when you take this unbelievably realistic mask off of him, Paul Renaud, who's the neighbor who we briefly met earlier when Elizabeth and Jack were taking this very odd walk out in the middle of nowhere, and then they have this very short, kind of pointless conversation with Renaud. But anyway, yes. They really do stretch the hell out of the scenes. Such mundane crap in this. It just goes back to what I was saying about the script being awful. I'm not going down that road again. Until maybe the end, where I kind of rant a little bit more about it. I love that Elizabeth's name being yelled when she was in bed sounded like some random dude and not a ghost. Yeah, this goes back to what I was saying, where they kind of try to incorporate some of this ghost aspect with Stefan. I don't even know what to call him. Like, is it Paul, Stefan, Edouard? I mean, it's really Paul, so I'll say Paul. That's what I'll say from now on. So Paul was playing that recording of him saying Elizabeth's voice, and it legit, like, didn't sound ghostly at all. It was just like some random dude being like, Elizabeth, Elizabeth, Elizabeth. And I was just like, you guys couldn't have tried harder. Like, you really couldn't. Apparently Casapinta couldn't be bothered. The conversation where Jack tells Elizabeth she is too suspicious makes Jack seem suspicious. Another one of these moments where they're like, look over here, it's Jack, it's Jack. Yeah, they do hit that really, really hard, and I will admit, when I was watching, I was kind of like, this movie is so bad that I kind of feel like it might just be Jack, even though they're pointing so hard at him. Just saying, but I was glad to give me something to make me feel like my time was worth a little bit invested into this. I'm glad that they didn't go with Jack in the end. Who is the super creeper who keeps staring at Elizabeth and Jack when they go to that bar? It's Cordova. I understand that he kind of had a point in the film, but he was kind of pointless, really. You do get one of the best scenes out of him, though, which is actually the fight scene between he and Jack when they're kind of like fighting on that hill in the woods, like, and there's some slapping going on in there. When you do not see men slap other men in giallo films for the most part. It's usually women getting slapped a lot. So to see a little bit of this, a little slap boxing going on in this was kind of funny to me. Also just that fight scene in general, like, it was funny. But yeah, but Cordova, it's like, what? But this whole film is like that. The whole film is just like, what are we doing? Oh man, this is another one of the parts where I was just like, wait. Uranium under the castle. And Stefan/Paul and Carol are interested in it and not concerned about the uranium. Like, apparently there was research about this uranium that's under the castle going on while they're there. I mean, I guess I assume that they don't understand that uranium's radioactive and that is probably killing them or could end up killing them. You know, like, it's just kind of weird. And I guess that's what they were trying to get at when they had that weird part where Carol goes into the, you know, the catacombs, and she's like, goes into this weird, like, crawl space that's like a sub basement, and then she's like, got this light that just lights up over this kind of what looks like a pool. I guess they were getting at she was like scanning for uranium or something. I don't know. But it's such a like a wacky left turn to throw into it. The incorporation of nudity is insanely forced in this film. It really does fly in the face of the actual story, which I guess is kind of a laughable comment, though, because there really isn't that much story anyway. Just saying. I like how Elizabeth says she may have a good buyer lined up. When she spoke to Renaud once, it was very brief, and she didn't solidify anything. She didn't even indicate that she was really interested in selling to him. So the fact that she brings it up later and is like, yes, I may have a very good, reliable buyer lined up here. What? What are you talking about, Elizabeth? You basically brushed the guy off who was like, I'll pay you for this. I'm very much interested. And then all of a sudden, she's just like, in her mind, she's like, I got a deal on the books. The paperwork's already written up. What are you talking about? Oh, geez. Elizabeth is told by Jeanette she's in danger, and her response is to ask her to write it all down, and she'll return tomorrow. Yeah, going back to that whole thing, because as we know, Jeanette ends up dying, as we probably all saw coming. But her reasoning for having her write everything down and then she'll get it tomorrow was we don't want I don't want this to seem too suspicious, basically, is what she was saying. What is suspicious? You're in a room. Like, the fact that you were in there at all, if anyone was going to see it, they saw it, and that's suspicious enough, I guess. So you might as well just finish this out. Like, she just got that little nugget of knowledge. It's just like, you're in danger. The other thing is, why are you going to wait till the next day if someone tells you you're in danger? If someone tells me I'm in danger, I'm going to say, tell me right now how I'm in danger. Do I need to do anything about this? Do I need to escape? Like, what's going on? No, Elizabeth really kind of nonchalantly is just like, oh, I'm in danger? Write it down and we'll talk about this tomorrow. Terrible writing. I kind of dig how terrible looking the fight between Jack and Cordova is. I already talked about this. That may be one of my highlights of the film. It may be my highlight of the film. Jeanette's death looked really laughable. That was another thing I was just like, I kind of enjoy that this looks terrible. When she just gets like grabbed out of her chair and just like thrown over this little bridge into the water. The cut in it, the way they cut it was so awful. It's just like she's seen being like picked up, and then all of a sudden it's like this super close shot of just like a random body just moving past the camera, and then she's gone. And you're just like, what? It was terrible. It was the butler all along. I mean, he looked like he could be a scientist, actually. So, was it... Okay, so I'm actually confused on this, because I believe that at one point they had said that that Elizabeth's uncle had worked with someone else. So was that supposed to be Stefan? Because we're continually seeing someone, like, working in a laboratory setting, and then in that laboratory setting, we see Carol talking to someone, and that's Stefan doing the whispering. So I guess Renaud then / Paul was a scientist with Elizabeth's uncle working on this uranium, but doing it as Stefan. Like, I don't understand. There might not be an answer, though. There may very well just not be an answer. I'm just saying. Oh, yeah. And then the fact that Renaud gets killed by the dog in the end. Like, literally, this dog just starts, like, running in, jumps on him, and he falls on this sharp object, and he's just like, ugh, dead. Like, what another, like, left turn, stupid thing to do, especially to end it. Like, have it end better. Have it end way better. Like, there's so many other things they could have done. I guess there might be some satisfaction for some people in the fact that the dog got revenge, because you get the idea throughout the film that the dog was very heartbroken by the fact that Elizabeth's uncle, the dog's owner, was dead. So it kind of seemed like the dog was looking for revenge in a sense. And actually, the entire film, the dog is pointing people to where the body is. So, yeah. And then it's revealed he's Renaud, and some crazy realistic mask that he was using. Like, I didn't get that either. Because, like, you see him as Edouard, and then it's revealed that he's actually Renaud. And you're just like, that was, like, they're two different actors, you can tell, obviously. But, like, where did he get the skills to make a mask that realistic? Because the mask he uses to, like, be the ghost, or as I would call it, broke-ass Phantom of the Opera, looks awful. Like, it looks like he put no work into it. It literally just looks like dried mud. Like, even, not even, like, real brown-looking mud. Like, that kind of, like, clay-ish, like, grayish brownish mud, and just like slathered it all over. Didn't look like he had the skills to make a mask like that, is what I'm getting at. Why do I have such a hard time saying slathered? I guess it's because I don't say it much. I don't know. Alright, so that's it for like the events of the film, but typical camera zooms are in this one, although I think they're very aggressive. It is something that Italian film would do at the time, you know, a lot of zooms. I liked more how certain filmmakers like Mario Bava did it, where they'd usually do it relatively smooth, but there were some filmmakers like Umberto Lenzi usually did like to do, you know, a little more aggressive, but at least his kind of like, they felt appropriately aggressive, like they were at the right time of the story or an action that was going on, and they were usually accompanied with some music that really enhanced the experience, and they didn't cut away from it super quick. With this one, it's just like super aggressive, really short. The music doesn't match necessarily. It's just like, it's a mess. It's a mess. Once again, the script is very meandering, and it just feels like a series of random scenes just slapped together. Ugh. Also, the subtitles, like I said, I think are poorly written at times. Not the whole time, but at times. I think the most enjoyment, other than that fight, that I got out of this film was just seeing kind of like the underground of the castle. Like, I guess the basement, the sub-basement, the catacombs, the torture room. Like, those things were just kind of cool looking because of like how dark and damp they were. And just like, it made you feel at that point during the film like something cool could happen. Like something jumps out of the shadows. Excuse me. Or something like that. But obviously, we weren't lucky enough to get anything like that because this movie sucks. But anyway, would love to hear everyone else's thoughts on this film. Go ahead and put it in the comments. Out of 5 stars with half stars in play, half star. This movie sucks. It's really, really bad. Not much to redeem it, actually. But do you agree with me? Did you see something else in this that you want to let me know about? Go ahead, put it in the comments. Do me a quick favor. Let me do this. Do some of this first. Excuse me. Allergies, dude. Plus I have asthma on top of it. Just makes it... But anyway, do me a quick favor. Hit subscribe if you can. And you can. It is quick, painless. It costs you $0. And that is your way to pay me back. Literally. Not making money doing this or anything. I'm just trying to build a nerdy horror community here because I don't have many people in my life to talk to in depth about horror, because a lot of people don't even watch horror movies that I know who live around me. So join this nerdy horror community. Hit subscribe. Also hit the notification bell button, because then you'll know when I'm putting up new videos. If you want to check them out when they first go up, and that does help me out, like boosting the visibility of my channel and that jazz. But all that aside, thank you very much for taking your time to check out this video, and until next time, keep it brutal.